So-Called is sponsored by loveboiseparks.org, which donates 50% of all profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at loveboiseparks.org.
Everyone gets to play. Everyone should play. No one should opt out, and no one should take the easy way. That is not what life is meant to be. So find a place where you can give to your community.
This is Mark Wojcik, and I'm wondering, how's your so-called career? Welcome to So-Called, the podcast that explores the why and how of work. On today's episode, we meet purpose-driven leader Blossom Johnston.
I'm Blossom Johnston. I guess, categorize myself as a purpose-driven person. So essentially what that means to me is that no matter what I'm doing, it both professionally and personally, it needs to align with my purpose in life. So you can call me a consultant. You can, there's a lot of terms that you might want to use, but really the bottom line is I work because there is a purpose behind it and for the greater good.
Purpose-driven consultant, or purpose-driven is the work that you seek out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an example of something like that you could share?
Sure.
Okay.
The latest purpose-driven effort that I'm involved in is to bring a social venture partners chapter to Idaho. And specifically, it rolls out of this need for us to build a robust philanthropic sector in Idaho. But not just that, but to use funds that we collectively give to not just give it to a group, but also to come alongside that group to make them stronger in the end. So my whole gig right now is to take a look at how we bring people who want to do well and do good alongside of nonprofits so that they can do more for people that they serve.
I think some people might say, well, Idaho has lots of charitable organizations. Isn't that robust? But I think you're talking about not just the amount of them, but how effective they are.
Correct. There's two parts of that equation. One is you have kind of the elephant in the room, which is the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, which gives 25 to 35 million a year, and then the next closest one gives about 3 million a year. So you've got this huge gap between ultra wealthy foundation and then everyone else. Well, what we really do know about Idahoans is we are a generous lot. We give, to the point of hurting. And that's just our DNA. What we don't do well is we don't demand accountability for our charitable dollars. And so in Idaho right now, we have over 7,500 nonprofits that are registered with the Secretary of State. And they take in over $5 billion a year. There is little accountability on where that money goes and whether the people that it serves are actually in a better place after they've been served. There's no data, or very little data. So people are beginning to ask those questions. So how might we do giving differently in our state? And that's really what I'm working on, is that concept of how might we do philanthropy differently in this state so that our communities and families thrive.
Asking the questions that help others think about things differently is something that Blossom finds satisfying about her work.
I have to say that I love seeing the spark that I can ignite in someone else. To be able to ask the right question at the right time that could get someone to go, oh, I never thought of that, but that leads me to this point. We get stuck. We all do it. It's humanity. We get stuck in a comfortable place. And when we get there, it's difficult for us to see solutions from any other perspective. And so my job is to come in and ask questions that may get people to think differently about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And so I love that, the satisfaction of seeing somebody. I mean, you can just see it. It ignites them. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their expressions, the way they lean forward, or they, hit the table, or something like that. You know that you have ignited a spark.
Are there things that you find difficult or harder to do, or things that you don't enjoy as much about pursuing this?
So let me just first of all make a comment about finding your passion. I would say yes and amen. What I would say is that there is the harsh realities of bills. And so while you should continue to always pursue those things that you're passionate about, it could be more on the personal side versus the professional side. So if you've got bills to pay, go get a job. But while you're doing that, keep your options open. So I would say that.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the downside, there's downsides in every stinking job. You do not come in 100% every day and go, wow, I love this. Because realistically, there are things I don't like to do, like this business plan I'm putting together. I suck at it. And yet I have to do it because that takes me to the next step. So instead of just sitting there going, oh, I hate this, I'm no good at this, then I flip it and I say, oh, okay, well, I need to go talk to so-and-so about the financial side of that, and then I need to go talk to so-and-so about the data side of that, and then I need to go talk to, so then I start sourcing the people that I know that I can trust and will not look at me with, make me feel guilty or embarrassed because I don't know. Because nobody knows everything.
Right. And, it occurs to me as you're saying that, too, is that the other thing is if there's something you don't like doing is that, nobody has to do it all alone or all themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Resources. You have to have good relationships. That is my number one motto is in life is cultivate solid, trusting relationships and be the kind of person that people can trust. So that when you do call and say, hey, I need XYZ, that they're more than willing to go, oh, sure. You help me with that. I'm happy to help you with that. So that's just being a good human.
In her career, Blossom has worked on behalf of families and children in several roles across the state of Idaho. In these positions, she recognized that there were similar challenges and opportunities for nonprofits and education organizations.
I had the distinct pleasure of serving two governors, Governor Kempthorne and Governor Risch. And while I was there, I dealt exclusively in the area of policy and programs for families and children. That was really my heart and my passion. And so I got out around the state. And first of all, we live in an astoundingly beautiful state.
Yeah.
If you've never been out of the Boise Valley, then I encourage you highly, get out and see this magnificent state and its people. So when I went out, we worked with hundreds of nonprofits across the state that are serving families and children. And what I noticed is that there were things that were consistently challenging. Now, at that point in time, I really didn't think twice about it. I just observed it and thought, oh, that's interesting that this organization has this challenge, and oh, look, this one has the same challenge. Oh, and that in North Idaho, they're dealing with the same thing. So fast forward a few years, and I'm sitting in the program officer seat at the Albertson Family Foundation and working with hundreds more nonprofits across the state and school districts. And I'm noticing the same thing. There seems to be the same kinds of challenges across education organizations as well. And so something started percolating in my heart and my mind of, okay, there's an opportunity for there to be, for us to do things more effectively. The four things that are problematic in most of our nonprofit sector is their governance. So if you think about nonprofits that you know that are smaller, a lot of times they get started with family and friends, the people who are on their board. And oftentimes that is not a recipe for success because oftentimes when you have family and friends on the board, rarely do they speak truth about the things that really need to happen. And rarely are they trained to know what good governance practices are. So number one is governance. Number two is their ability to tell the story. Very few tell their story effectively. There are a few outliers, like the Y, the Treasure Valley Y here, is an outlier. They do a great job of telling their story, but that is an outlier. Most don't. The other piece is their financial processes and structures. A lot of times, our nonprofits are still operating with very rudimentary tools to manage their finances. And oftentimes when you bring people who are financially minded into that, they just throw their hands up and go, oh my gosh, how did we get here?
Oh.
And then the other one is outcomes. Most people are really good at counting the number of people they serve, the number of things they give away, but they really don't know whether or not that person is better off as a result of what they've done.
Yeah.
And so that's what we really need to be evaluating, is the outcomes of those investment dollars. So those four things are problematic for most of our nonprofits. And through this Social Venture Partners, we want to be able to come alongside, not just with funds, but with big brains that can come alongside and co-design solutions.
Blossom's experiences working in Idaho led to her current work on Social Venture Partners, but her core values and foundation for seeking purpose-driven work started long before.
So I guess I have to go back to my roots. My mother is a full-blooded Hawaiian, and my father is a full-blooded Irishman. And I grew up in a family of 10 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And it was a very busy household. It was never quiet. Someone was always in trouble. It was just amazing, and grew up on the big island of Hawaii. So just this crazy time of growing up in the 60s and 70s that rooted me in two things, in my culture and in my faith. And so I would say those two things have guided me. They've been my North Star from the time I was little, and continue to guide me as an adult and as a grandparent now. Is I am going to seek God for whatever is in front of me, and I am going to make sure they align with those values that I was taught from a very young age, of being pono, which is right, and to take care of my kuleana, which is those things that are my responsibility, and to live with aloha, which means love, and to walk in ha'aha'a, which is humility. So these core values that are very aligned with my faith, those are the things that from very young I have grounded myself in and have put down deep roots. Anything I do, professionally and personally, will be a natural outflow of what I'm grounded in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now that's not to say that I've gone off the rails over the course of my life, and because I have, and it has not been a smooth ride.
Sure.
But when I allow myself to stand strong in those things that I know, then it's just a natural outflowing. Doors open, people are in my life for a reason. Things start lining up.
Blossom paused to reflect more deeply on her purpose at an inflection point in her life. If you're looking to uncover your own purpose, Blossom recommends creating a life plan, documenting those findings, and revisiting that plan regularly to make sure you're staying true to your purpose.
Well, it's interesting that at that inflection point at 40,
Yeah.
it wasn't too many years after that I felt this huge impression that I needed to document these things that were in my head and heart about this whole idea of who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually documented what I call a life plan, But it's that work of going back to when you were a child, looking at it and turning it around and collecting data around it, and then also moving towards your adult self of, what are the things that still make you cry, or that break your heart, or that, keep you awake at night, or, what would you do even if you didn't get paid to do? And there are key questions that a person can ask themselves that can get them to that place of, this is who I am. Yeah.
Do you revisit that plan on any schedule, or just sort of as the mood strikes you?
I try to do it I try to do it as thoughtfully as I can on a regular basis, but annually at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, keeping it in front of you, making sure that there's certain things that you're living up to on a regular basis. I have mantras that I tell myself on a daily basis that keep me focused in on those things that are of highest priority. Yeah.
Do you, so I'm just thinking about reflecting on it and writing it down. Do you tell people?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I ask is because you hear that advice about, like, if you have some goal.
Yes.
If I tell you, now I'm accountable.
Absolutely.
And then if I just keep it, I'll just keep that to myself.
Yeah. So at age 40, this whole thing kind of was uncovered. I wish it had happened earlier, but even though it didn't, I could still see the years leading up to this all fed into it. But at this inflection point of really going deep into what is this next season, what was uncovered was that with God's help, I will improve the well-being of families and children. And so for the last almost 20 years, that's what I've done in pretty much everything I do with my own family, with extended family, with friends and their family, with my church and their family, whatever. It is about improving the well-being of families and children. That's what I do.
Blossom advises that being a giver is a two-way street. By giving, you will help others, and you'll also help yourself thrive.
Everyone gets to play. Everyone should play. No one should opt out. And no one should take the easy way. That is not what life is meant to be. We cannot allow ourselves to coast. There are too many people who are in desperate situations that need advocates, that need resources, that need plain hands in order for them to be in a better position for them and their families to thrive. So find a place where you can give to your community and this world, because you're either a giver or a taker. And if you're constantly taking, your relationships aren't going to be great. The world that you live in will not be great. But if you flip that and start giving, even in small ways, a little bit of your time, then you'll begin to cultivate the kind of relationships that will help you thrive.
And if you're daunted about where to start, or even if you should start, Blossom knows how you feel.
Well, it's interesting because Jim Everett, a good friend of probably both of ours, when I decided I was going to start back competitively swimming after being out of the water from the time I was in high school, yeah. So I'd been over 35 years. And I was facing my very first meet, and I was scared spitless. I'm like, what am I thinking? I'm 56 years old, and I'm going to swim against 15 and 16-year-olds? What am I thinking? And so I almost dropped out, and I thought, I'm going to just talk to Jim. And so I said, Jim, here's what's going on, and I don't know if I can do it. He said, Blossom, as soon as you dive in, you have won. And that so stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, okay, he flipped it from me focused on winning to me just being focused on getting out there.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I think has a lot of legs for people behind us who are starting their careers.
Thinking about your career and looking back and what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
I had the beautiful opportunity of doing life plans with my nieces. Oh man, I look back at that. That to me was such a satisfying and such a rich time, is to walk them through this process of who am I, and what do I care deeply about, and helping them to put together just their own mission statement for their lives. That's what I want for younger people, is to know why they're on this earth at a much younger time than 40 years of age.
Yeah.
so that they can be about accomplishing that at younger and younger ages, which I think these younger generations really do have a heart for the world. And so to understand their place within that at a younger age can only benefit all of us. Yeah, so another piece of advice, and I have not read the book yet, but I listened to the podcast yesterday and was like, I went home and I told my husband, we have to get the book and we have to do this. But Chip Heath just evidently wrote a book not too long ago called Moments. He was talking about creating moments so that people, there is a moment for a Disneyland experience. So how do we create moments in our families, in our work, in wherever we're at, where people have a Disney moment, where they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so when I got home, I texted my daughter-in-laws and I said, let's do a Valentine's tea with my granddaughters and their moms with their stuffies, and dress up. And so I want to create a moment so that when they look back, they'll see this place where there was this touch that touched their head and created a Disney experience for them.
If you want to know more about creating memorable moments, check our show notes for the link to the podcast Blossom mentioned. And finally, I asked Blossom what's next for her.
So I would say that at least for the next couple of years, I'm going to keep my head focused in on social venture partners and scaling that in Idaho, starting here in the Boise metro and then moving statewide. And then I'll do what I do, which is stop and reflect and say what's next. Because I am not someone who believes in retirement. This is the other part of our social venture partners. We need the retired community to re-engage. If we can get the untapped treasure, which is our retired community, re-engaged with our younger entrepreneurs, our younger business leaders, we will have a much stronger economy, because the wisdom of the ages doesn't change. Technology changes, but the wisdom that goes along with that typically only comes through walking through what doesn't work, could easily be tapped into by the retired community coming back in and re-engaging. So we have to make pathways for the retired community to re-engage so that that wealth is tapped.
So Called is sponsored by loveboiseparks.org, which donates 50% of all profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at loveboiseparks.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Subscribe and leave us a review. So Called is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever you get your podcasts.